Nobody at the front desk knew who he was. No security, no entourage, no flashing cameras. Just a calm man walking in late at night asking for a room. Keanu Reeves, the Hollywood star, the owner of the hotel, and he was denied. At first, the staff didn't notice. He smiled politely, explained his reservation, but the manager shrugged. "We're fully booked," she said. Keanu didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. He simply nodded as if it were just another minor inconvenience. Guests around whispered. Some pulled out their phones, curious. Some even laughed. How could the owner be denied? They wondered. And that's when the manager added the words no one will forget, for real guests only. The lobby froze. Keanu Reeves could have lost his temper, could have demanded, could have yelled, but he didn't. Instead, he stayed calm. And that calm is what made everyone lean in, hold their breath, and wonder what would happen next. If you were in the lobby, watching this unfold, would you have stayed silent? Or would you have spoken up? Type calm in the comments if you think you could handle it like Keanu. The hotel lobby was buzzing, phones ringing, guests hurrying in and out. Bellhops rushing past with luggage, a constant murmur of conversation, the soft clinking of glasses from the lounge, and the faint hum of air conditioning overhead. In the middle of all this chaos, Keanu Reeves walked in quietly. Simple clothes, no sunglasses, no security. Just a calm, confident presence that somehow made the commotion seem slightly louder because of the contrast. He approached the front desk. Polite, calm, unassuming. "I'd like a room for tonight," he said. For a moment, nothing happened. The receptionist looked at him, then at her computer screen. Keanu's presence didn't register. Maybe it was the jeans, maybe it was the hoodie. But this man seemed like just another guest. Then came the words that would shock everyone. "We're fully booked," the receptionist said without hesitation. Keanu smiled politely, nodded. "I actually have a reservation," he replied. The staff exchanged a glance. A few guests nearby noticed. Phones subtly came out. Whispers started to float through the air. Did he really just say he has a reservation? The manager, standing a few feet back, stepped in, arms crossed, a smirk on his face. "For real guests," he said, leaning over the counter, "not people like you." The words landed like a punch. Every guest nearby turned toward them. Some gasped quietly. Some looked around, unsure if they had heard right. Keanu didn't react. Not a muscle in his face twitched. He didn't argue, didn't shout, didn't demand respect. He simply paused as if considering his next move carefully, letting the tension fill the space between them. The lobby grew quiet. People stopped what they were doing. Phones lowered. Conversations halted mid-sentence. It was in this silence that Keanu made his move. Slowly, deliberately, he stepped aside, pulled out his phone. A few seconds passed. The manager, growing impatient, began to smirk again. "Are you going to call someone?" the manager asked, trying to regain control. Keanu didn't answer. He just pressed a few buttons. A single call, a quiet conversation. Guests strained to hear. They could see the calm on his face, no frustration, no anger, yet an unmistakable authority radiated from him. Minutes ticked by. The staff grew uneasy. Something was coming, something they hadn't anticipated. "Sir, we're fully booked," the manager repeated, now with a hint of nervousness. Keanu glanced around. Not at the manager, not at the receptionist, but at the guests. He gave a small, polite nod, almost like he was acknowledging their curiosity, their judgment, their attention. Every eye in the lobby was fixed on him. Some whispered, "Oh, there's this guy." Others whispered, "That's Keanu Reeves." The manager's smirk faded. He realized the eyes of the room were no longer on him. They were on the man he had just insulted. Keanu kept his tone calm, almost gentle, yet firm. "People should be treated with respect," he said quietly. The statement wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The weight of it, carried in the calm, unshakable authority of someone who could do anything, made everyone lean in, waiting for what would happen next. Phones were recording. Guests were holding their breath. Everyone knew something big was about to unfold. And that's when Keanu did the unexpected. He waited. 9 minutes. That's all it took. 9 minutes for consequences to arrive. By then, everyone in the lobby knew the quiet, calm man asking for a room was not someone to be underestimated. Type respite in the comments if you think you'd stay calm under this kind of pressure. The manager didn't just deny him a room. He didn't just shrug and wave him away. No, he leaned in, arms crossed, a smirk spreading across his face as if he was in control. "You don't look like someone who belongs here," he said. The words hit like a slap. Every guest in the lobby could feel it. Some gasped, others froze, unsure if they'd really heard correctly. Phones subtly started appearing, recording angles of the unfolding scene. Keanu Reeves didn't respond. Not immediately. He simply tilted his head slightly, eyes calm, scanning the lobby, taking in every person who had witnessed the humiliation. His wife, quietly standing a few steps behind, looked down, discomfort written across her face. For a moment, you could feel the weight of the tension in the room. The staff, once confident, began to shift nervously. The receptionist's fingers hovered over the keyboard. The bellhop paused mid-step. Even the guests who had been quietly sipping drinks or scrolling their phones now felt it. A moment was coming, a moment that could change everything in this room. The manager smirked again, clearly unaware of the storm he was poking. Or maybe this hotel isn't for people like you, he added, leaning closer, voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Keanu's eyes never flinched. He didn't shout, he didn't curse, he didn't demand attention. He simply breathed slowly, evenly, calm, unshakable. The silence that followed was almost deafening. Conversations had stopped, the clinking of glasses faded. Phones lowered, everyone's attention was glued to this standoff. And then, in the calmest tone, Keanu spoke. Just a few words. People should be treated with respect, he said quietly. The lobby hung on his words. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the humming of the air conditioning seemed to pause. The manager, thinking he had the upper hand, stepped even closer. You think you can just tell me how to run my hotel? He sneered. Keanu didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't make threats. He simply tilted his head slightly, and in that moment, the room seemed to shrink around him. The air changed. Everyone could feel it. The guests instinctively leaned forward. Phones appeared again, recording. Some whispered, "That's Keanu Reeves." Others whispered, "Is he really staying calm?" The manager, growing frustrated, crossed his arms and leaned over the counter again, trying to assert authority. "Maybe you don't belong here after all," he said, voice rising. Keanu's calm didn't break. Not a muscle twitched in his face. He simply took a single step aside, pulled out his phone, and made a call. The room held its breath. Nobody moved. The receptionist, who had been smug just moments ago, now looked nervous. Guests glanced at one another, exchanging confused, worried looks. They could sense the shift. Something was about to happen, something they hadn't anticipated. Keanu's call was brief. He hung up. Then, slowly, deliberately, he looked around the lobby, meeting the eyes of every guest who had witnessed the disrespect, every person recording the scene, every staff member who thought they were untouchable. 9 minutes. That's all it took. 9 minutes for consequences to arrive. By the time the executive arrived, the manager realized he had made a catastrophic mistake. The calm man denied nothing, demanded nothing, yet in his silence, he had asserted far more power than any shouting or threats could have. Keanu's presence alone had created a ripple of anticipation, tension, and authority that no one could ignore. Every guest in that lobby knew the man standing there, denied, insulted, disrespected, was someone who did not act on impulse. But when he acted, the results were undeniable. And that is why people stayed glued to the moment, whispering, recording, holding their breath, waiting for the inevitable. If you were there, watching this unfold, what would you do? Would you stay calm like Keanu? Or would the disrespect have pushed you over the edge? Type CON-RL in the comments if you think you could stay calm in a moment like this. The manager thought he had control. He had a position, a title, a confident smirk. He believed that he could dictate every interaction in the lobby. But he had underestimated Keanu Reeves. The calm, quiet man standing before him had not argued, had not shouted, had not reacted with anger, and yet every word, every subtle movement, radiated authority. The kind of authority you don't earn by yelling or asserting power. It's the kind that comes from complete self-control. Guests in the lobby were leaning forward now. Phones were out. Some were whispering excitedly. Others were holding their breath. They could feel something big about to happen. Maybe you don't belong here. The manager sneered again, stepping closer. His voice rose, trying to dominate the room. Keanu didn't flinch, didn't take a step back, did not even raise his voice. He simply lifted his eyes, calm and unwavering, and looked at the manager. "Everyone deserves respect," he said softly. The words hung in the air, yet they were heavier than any yell, any threat, any punch. The manager's smirk faltered. He stepped closer, invading Keanu's space. His tone became aggressive, almost mocking. "Or what? What are you going to do?" The room went silent. The usual background noise, chatter, phones, elevators, faded completely. Every single person in the lobby felt it. The moment was about to escalate. The manager's confidence started to crack. He didn't realize that he had crossed a line, Not with words, not with attitude, but with his own arrogance. Keanu took a single step forward. Not aggressively, not rushed, just deliberate, controlled. The kind of step that signals dominance without violence. "You should apologize," he said calmly. A hush fell over the room. Guests exchanged shocked looks, phones captured every second. Some whispered. His not raising his voice, and yet it's terrifying. The manager laughed nervously, trying to regain control. Apologize? Or what? Then came the critical mistake. He stepped closer, towering over Keanu, invading the space of a man who could have crushed him with rage if he wanted. And this is where the room held its collective breath, because everyone knew that if anyone acted on impulse here, it would end badly. The manager shoved Keanu's shoulder, hard enough for gasps to ripple through the lobby. Guests recoiled, unsure what would happen next. The receptionist froze mid-action, the bellhop stopped mid-step, and even a few bold guests held their positions tense. Keanu didn't flinch, didn't retaliate. He took a single step back, not to retreat, but to protect the woman standing quietly behind him. Every move was precise, calculated, controlled. "You still have time," he said softly. The manager raised his hand again, intending to intimidate. Big mistake. Keanu moved with a speed so subtle that most people barely noticed it. A smooth, effortless motion redirected the manager's arm. No punch, no anger. Just precision and control. The manager stumbled back, off balance, shocked. His smirk was gone. Confidence shattered. The lobby remained silent. The guests could barely breathe. Some whispered, "Did he just? What did he do?" Others recorded the moment, knowing it would be shared online within hours. Keanu didn't chase him, didn't yell, didn't threaten. He simply said, "Control ends fights. Anger starts them." Every word landed like a hammer. The calmness of his demeanor contrasted sharply with the chaos the manager tried to create. And in that moment, respect was earned, not demanded. Security personnel arrived moments later, but there was no need for them to act aggressively. The manager's authority had evaporated entirely. Even he realized in that instant that he had misjudged the man standing before him. Guests whispered among themselves, shocked. Some recorded every second, murmuring to each other, "I've never seen someone handle disrespect like that ever." Keanu turned to the woman behind him, his wife, his calm unwavering. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded quietly, still in awe of what had just unfolded. By now the story of the confrontation had started spreading, phones recording, whispers passing from guest to guest. Social media would be flooded by morning. But the reason it went viral wasn't because of a fight. It was because of discipline, patience, and control. This moment wasn't about power through aggression. It was about power through calm, measured authority. And every single person in that lobby, staff and guests alike, knew one truth. Keanu Reeves had not only defended himself, but also demonstrated the kind of strength that doesn't require shouting, threats, or violence. If you were there, watching this unfold, feeling the tension in the air, could you have stayed calm? Could you have handled it without anger, without revenge, without losing control? Type respect in the comments if you believe true strength is calm under pressure. And share, how would you react in a moment like this? The manager thought he could intimidate Keanu Reeves. He thought a shove, a raised hand, and some arrogance would keep control. He was wrong. The shove came first, a sudden, sharp push to Keanu's shoulder. Gasps rippled through the lobby. Phones rose to capture the moment. Guests froze, unsure if chaos would erupt. Some even whispered nervously, "Is he going to hit him?" Keanu didn't react the way anyone expected. He didn't swing. He didn't yell. He didn't even raise his voice. Instead, he took a single step back, not retreating but positioning himself strategically. Every micro-movement was deliberate, controlled. It was clear to anyone watching that this was a man who could end the situation at any moment, but chose not to. "You still have time," he said quietly. The manager, filled with arrogance and frustration, raised his hand again. That was the mistake. Keanu moved with a speed that seemed effortless, almost imperceptible to most observers. In one smooth motion, he redirected the manager's arm. No aggression, no anger. Just precision, control, and perfect timing. The manager stumbled backward. Shock spread across his face. Confidence, once so firmly planted, had vanished. The room remained silent. Phones still recorded, capturing every subtle movement. Guests whispered to each other, trying to understand what had just happened. Some leaned in, mouths open. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Keanu didn't pursue, didn't threaten, didn't shout. He simply stood tall, calm, unwavering, and delivered the words that would echo through the lobby for weeks. Control ends fights. Anger starts them. Every word landed like a hammer. The calmness of his demeanor contrasted with the chaos the manager had attempted to create. Authority was not demanded. It was felt, recognized, respected. Security arrived moments later, but by then no one needed to act. The manager's authority had evaporated entirely. Even he knew deep down that he had misjudged the man standing before him. Guests murmured among themselves. Phones continued to record. "I've never seen someone handle disrespect like that," whispered one guest. "It's unbelievable," said another. Keanu turned to the woman quietly standing behind him, his wife. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded, her eyes reflected awe and relief. The entire staff, once confident, now shaken, stood frozen. They had witnessed the power of calm, of self-control, and of discipline. The kind of power that doesn't require shouting, threatening, or attacking, yet commands respect instantly. The manager, pale and trembling, tried to speak but no words came. The silence itself conveyed everything. He had crossed the line and now faced the consequences. Within moments, the hotel's executive team arrived. No drama, no shouting, just action. The staff who had caused the incident were removed quietly but firmly. It was clear that disrespect, arrogance, and ignoring the rules of basic courtesy had consequences. Keanu didn't celebrate. He didn't boast. He didn't make a scene. He accepted the regular room he had requested, calmly, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Though everyone around knew exactly how extraordinary the situation had been, by morning the story had spread. Phones had uploaded videos. Guests were posting online. Everyone was talking about the calm, controlled man who had been denied a room at his own hotel, and the instant consequences that followed. Not because of violence, not because of shouting, not because of fame, because of discipline, because of control, because of true strength, the kind that commands respect without needing to prove itself. And that is what made the story viral. People shared it, discussed it, and admired it, not for the conflict, but for the lesson. If you were there, witnessing the situation, the manager's arrogance, the shove, the calm response, the precise control, what would you have done? Could you have stayed calm? Could you have maintained authority without resorting to anger or aggression? Type respite in the comments if you believe true power is calm under pressure. And tell me honestly, in a moment like this, would you have the discipline to remain in control? Or would you have lost your temper? The lobby had gone silent. Not a whisper. Not a clink of glass, not a rustle of luggage. Every single person inside the hotel felt it. The moment had arrived. The manager, still pale and trembling, realized too late that he had misjudged the calm man before him. Keanu Reeves didn't shout, didn't swing, didn't even raise his voice. He simply stood tall, perfectly composed, like a mountain in the middle of a storm. And then he acted. In one smooth, almost imperceptible motion, he redirected the manager's raised arm. No punch, no rage, just precision and control. The manager stumbled backward. Guests gasped. Phones captured the subtle movement. Some leaned in closer, trying to catch every detail. Some whispered in awe, did he just? Keanu didn't chase, didn't threaten, didn't raise his voice. He simply said, "Control ends fights. Anger starts them." Every word landed like a quiet hammer. They weren't loud words, but in that room, they carried more weight than any scream, any attack, any display of physical strength. The staff, once confident and arrogant, now looked shaken. They had underestimated a man who did not need to prove himself. They had disrespected someone who could have reacted with violence, and learned, in a matter of seconds, what true power looked like. Guests whispered. Phones recorded. Some were too stunned to even speak. They could feel the shift in the air, the subtle but undeniable authority of someone who could act, but chose restraint. Keanu glanced around the room. His wife stood quietly behind him, her expression a mix of relief and awe. He made sure she was safe. Every move he made was controlled, measured, deliberate. The manager, realizing that he had lost not just authority but dignity, froze. His face drained of color. He had crossed the line, pushed a man who could have reacted violently, and yet nothing had happened. In those moments, it became clear power without discipline is meaningless. Discipline without power is invisible. Keanu had both. Security had arrived, but they didn't need to intervene. The manager was already defeated, not by force but by precision, calm and controlled authority. The lobby slowly exhaled. Guests murmured among themselves. Phones kept recording. Everyone who had witnessed it understood something important. Strength was not measured by aggression. Respect was earned, not demanded. Keanu didn't make a show. He didn't celebrate. He simply returned to his original position, calm, collected, like nothing extraordinary had happened. but everyone knew it had been extraordinary. Guests whispered in hushed tones, "I've never seen someone handle that like ever." Some posted short clips online. Others shared the story quietly with friends. Within minutes, it began to spread. People admired not the confrontation, but the controlled discipline and self-command that Keanu had displayed. He turned to his wife and asked, quietly, "Are you okay?" She nodded. Her eyes reflected the relief and awe of someone who had just witnessed a master at work. The manager, pale and defeated, tried to speak but could only shake his head. He had learned a lesson: arrogance and disrespect have immediate consequences when faced with calm, controlled authority. By now, every guest in the lobby had felt it. Every staff member, every passerby, every person recording had seen it. The story would spread not because of fame, not because of force, not because of anger, but because of discipline, composure, and precision. Keanu's presence, calm demeanor, and strategic action had turned a potential disaster into a powerful lesson in respect and authority. And that is why the video, the story, the moment went viral, not for the fight, but for the control behind it. If you were there, seeing this unfold, would you have the discipline to stay calm? Could you redirect conflict without anger? Or would you have lost control like the manager? Type DIC-plan in the comments if you believe true power is calm under pressure. And ask yourself honestly, in a moment like this, could you act with precision instead of impulse? Could you win without losing your composure? The hotel lobby had returned to its usual hum, but nothing was ordinary anymore. Guests whispered in low tones, some replaying the events on their phones. Staff who had once been smug and overconfident now moved cautiously, aware that every action had consequences. The air carried a new weight, the kind you feel after witnessing authority exercised with precision and calm. Keanu Reeves stood quietly, unshaken, composed. His wife was beside him, finally relaxed, eyes wide with awe. He glanced at her with a gentle nod, checking that she was okay. Her subtle smile reflected relief, but also the recognition of the quiet force she had just seen in action. The manager, pale and defeated, had been removed from the front desk by security. No shouting, no humiliation, no dramatics. Just consequences delivered efficiently. His arrogance had been replaced by a lesson in respect he would not soon forget. Guests watched as Keanu accepted the room he had originally requested. Not a suite, not special treatment, just a simple room. The contrast between the chaos the manager tried to create and the calm composure of Keanu was striking. Every step, every decision Keanu had made in the last minutes had been precise. Each micro-movement, each carefully measured word had demonstrated something far more powerful than physical strength or fame. True authority, true respect, true control. Phones continued to capture it all. Clips would circulate online, shared millions of times. The story would go viral, not because Keanu had used force or intimidation, but because he had shown discipline, calm, and strategic power. Guests whispered among themselves. Some remarked, "I've never seen someone handle disrespect like that. His calm, it's terrifying in the best way. Power isn't loud. Power is quiet." The lesson was clear in moments of tension, in moments where people expect a reaction. Control wins over chaos and discipline commands respect. Keanu turned once more to his wife softly. "Are you okay?" She nodded. No words were needed. Everything that needed to be said had already been expressed through actions. Security personnel, now relaxed, allowed the guests to return to their evening routines. The lobby resumed its usual rhythm, but the atmosphere had shifted permanently. Anyone who had witnessed the incident knew they had seen something extraordinary. A man denied respect, confronted with aggression, and yet responding not with rage, but with calm precision. By morning, social media was flooded. Clips were shared, discussed, dissected. Headlines highlighted the calm, the control, the lesson. The manager's mistake became a case study in arrogance, while Keanu's response became a viral lesson in self-discipline. The true takeaway wasn't fame. It wasn't ownership of the hotel. It wasn't even the confrontation itself. It was the power of self-control. It was the reminder that strength doesn't need to shout, strike, or dominate. It needs only precision, patience, and authority. If you were there, what would you have done? Could you have maintained the calm, redirected aggression, and controlled the outcome without anger? Could you have earned respect instead of demanding it? Type respect in the comments if you believe true power comes from calm under pressure. And ask yourself honestly, if someone disrespected you, would you react impulsively, or would you choose the path that commands respect silently, without chaos? Because that is the moment the world remembers. The video, the whispers, the stunned reactions, the manager's defeated expression, all of it will be shared, replayed, and admired, not for drama, not for violence, but for the quiet authority and discipline displayed in those critical minutes. This is why moments like this go viral, not because of confrontation, but because of the lesson behind the confrontation. The lesson is simple, yet powerful. Control ends fights. Anger starts them. Discipline earns respect. Impulse loses it. And that is why, long after the lobby emptied and the hotel returned to routine, everyone who had witnessed the incident carried it with them, a story of restraint, precision, and the quiet power that commands respect. Type DESCRIPITION in the comments if you think you could act like Keanu. And think carefully, in a moment like that, could you have remained calm, precise, and in control? Or would you have fallen into the trap of anger and chaos?